Hi class, so today we're going to be talking about math lesson 6. So we're continuing with finding measures of angles, and the only difference for this week is that now we will actually be using the measurement tool, which is your protractor. Okay, so we use a protractor to find the measurement of an angle, and when you have an angle, you're going to line up the vertex, which is the corner of the angle, which is your little point. Remember, we talked about that last week. You're going to line that up at the center point of the protractor. And so if your angle goes towards the right, then you're going to read the inner numbers of your protractor. It does have some inner numbers, and then it has the outer numbers, okay? So again, if your angle is on the right side, then you will read the inner numbers. If your angle is facing the left side, then you're going to be reading the outer numbers, okay? The outside numbers. So I did include some links here that you can visit so that you can get some online protractors so that you can practice this at home, okay? So do go ahead and visit those websites so that you can see how to use those online protractors. So if we move on, here's another second anchor chart on measuring angles. Again, if your angle is facing the right, you're going to use your inner numbers. If it is facing the left, you're going to use your outer numbers, okay? So you're going to line up the vertex. Again, your angle will always line up at the center point of the protractor. You're going to make sure that the bottom ray of the angle goes through the zero. Okay, we want to make sure that it goes through this zero. You can measure angles using either side of the protractor. So like I said, either they can face the right or they can face the left. You're going to count up from the zero until the other ray intersects. These are going to be in measurements of 10. Now, you will have in between, and not all angles will fall at the 10. So you will need to look carefully at your protractor to see the measurement of your angle. Okay, it says, now if for this ray, it is facing the right side, so that means we're going to be looking at the inner numbers. So if I count by 10, so 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then I have the in between, so I would go to 55. If I read that incorrectly, I could have thought that this was 125 if I was looking at the outer numbers. But again, because it starts from 0 and on to 180, we're looking at the inner numbers, so be careful with those. Okay, so as we continue, you do have your optional activities. Your optional activities have different videos, okay? Remember, these are optional. We will go through some practice ones together. So you can view these videos, but they're not exactly necessary. They are good for extra practice, okay? The one that we are going to be looking at, this one is another optional activity. You will find the degree of the angle. The one that we're going to be looking at together is this measuring angles Google Slides activity. Okay, so we're going to be doing some of these examples together. Now, I'm not going to use the actual Google slide, but I am going to use an example of what it looks like. So this is the protractor that will be used on your Google slide. And on this Google slide, you will have different angles that are asking for the measurement. When we look at these different angles that are here, we will be naming these different angles. And so the first angle that I'm going to look at is starts here with A, and then notice that all of these angles have the midpoint, the vertex of a zero, of the O. Okay, so the O will be your vertex for all of these angles. So anywhere, any rays that meet at the vertex O will create an angle. So the first one that we're going to be looking at is our angle AOD. So that means that I start at the angle A and I work my way to the O because that's my vertex, and then I'm coming up to my D, so I'm looking at that angle right there. Okay, so that's my angle, and I write angle. That's how I write the angle, AOD. Okay, And so I'm going to measure this angle and see the measurement that it has. So now it's on the right side. That means I'm going to use my inner numbers, and I'm going to skip count by 10. So I have 10, 20, 30, 40. Okay, now it lands right on my 40. So this will be 40 degrees. Okay, and that's my measurement for angle AOD. So we're going to look at a second angle, and I'm going to go ahead and change the color. So for this one, my angle is going to be HOF. Okay, that means that I'm going to start with H, I'm going to go to my vertex O, and then I'm going to come up on the ray F. So my angle is H, and I went down a little, but that's okay, H, O, and then I'm going to come up with F. Okay, now this angle is facing the left side, and so that means that with the left side, my numbers, I'm going to be looking at my outer numbers. So I'm going to skip count, and that's 10, 20, 30. Okay, so now these luckily did fall on an exact measurement of 10, so I know that this angle right here is 30 degrees. Okay, and so that is my measurement for my angle HOF. So let's look at another one. If I have the angle, I'm going to change it to blue. Let's say I have the angle AOB. Okay, so I'm going to look at A right here, O, B right there. This is my angle. Okay, so now it's on my right side, which means I'm going to use my inner numbers. But when I use my inner numbers, I skip count to 10, and then I have some small, tiny little, these are called ticks. And so I'm going to count those to see what my measurement is. Okay, so now it's not exactly between it's, if you notice, it's between the 10 and the 20. And so right here, I can say that my angle is about 15 degrees. Okay, now it is a little difficult to see. I know that the protractor may not be so visible and clear, but on the practice problems, you will see some clear protractors, and so that should help with the measurements. Okay, and so on that Google slide, you will have more angles for this protractor, and I want you to go ahead and continue and keep trying that on your own so that you can measure the different angles. Remember, the best way to measure the best is to practice, so you will need to practice. Okay, and so now I starting blank again because we went over how to measure angles, and now we're going to go into the next lesson, which will be how to find the missing angles. Okay, so remember last week we were discussing about straight angles, and we know that straight angles are 180 degrees because that's half of the circle. And so sometimes you'll have maybe an angle here, and let's say that my vertex is, let's keep it as an O like it was over there. And let's say that we have angle BOF. That's one of my angles. And let's say that I have my other angle, which is MOB. Okay, so that's two different angles, and for reference I'm just gonna do this one in red. Okay, so this one over here would form a second angle. Okay, and that would be the same ray would be used for both of these angles. And so let's say that for my angle BOF, let's say that my measurement was it's definitely going to be under 90 degrees because 90 degrees would make a perfect angle. So let's say this is say this is 55 degrees. Okay, so let's say this one's 55 degrees. Again, this is not exact, I'm using this as an example. Okay, So please do not think that an angle like this would be 55. I'm just using this as an example. So I know that angle BOF is 55 degrees. Okay, and I know this because the information, oh sorry, let me go back and erase that. My cursor went a little crazy. Okay, so BOF is 55 degrees. Okay, and that's angle. Okay, so now I want to find the missing number, the angle for, the measurement for angle MOB, which I just saw it spells the word mob, but okay, MOB. So now remember that my straight line is 180. So that means that if I were to combine these two angles, they should add up to 180 degrees. So now how can I find this missing angle? Think back to part, whole. I know my whole, which is 180. I have a part of that whole, which is 55. So I'm going to take away my 55. I'm going to subtract, so I'm going to regroup. My 8 now becomes a 7. My 0 now becomes a 10. So now I have 5, 2, and 1. So my angle MOB, I now know that it is 125 degrees. Now this is another type of way to find the missing angles, and this won't have a protractor, which is why they give you the measurement of the angle, and then they won't tell you or remind you that the straight line is 180 degrees. That's something you just have to remember on your own. And so you find the missing angle by using that as a reference. Okay, so hopefully this is helpful, and you are able to work on your lessons through the week. Go ahead and do the optional activities, and go ahead and work through those. And if you have any questions, let me know. All right, bye.